How did you find this property, and why'd you pick this location?
Sure, that's one of those things where sometimes the story's so crazy it sounds like you can't even make it up. We flew down here about August of last year. I want to say that time frame, August, September of 2012, which is crazy. Man, that's 13 months ago. And we drove everywhere. I mean, you name it, yes, we looked at it. The Hofbrauhaus, the Drawbridge Inn, property in Covington, Circleport, the Beverly Hills Supper Club. I mean, every piece of property that you can possibly imagine, we looked at. We spent about a day and a half doing that. Very frustrated. Didn't find a piece of property that really stood out at me. So we came back again sometime in October after we got the official go-ahead from Mercedes. And I got the people who I respect the most in this area who we've met, which is Blevins and Kerry Bolin, Bill Butler and Wayne Carlo. I got them together. I got them in a room, and I said, "Okay, guys," because each was giving me their take on which one was the best piece of property. I said, "Fantasize for a moment. If you could only pick one piece of property, which one would it be?" And all three of them, like that USA Hotel property. But immediately they say, "But that'll never happen. It can't happen. Never happen. Impossible. The political climate's wrong in the city. The zoning's wrong. There's maybe environmental issues. There's soil problems. It's foreclosure. Nobody who knows who owns it. There's no way. And if you did it, you'd be opening 4 years from now." And so I said, okay, so let's reverse engineer this thing. Let's start with, we opened and go backwards and what milestones have to happen. And the first milestone was really the city part. And we got a hold of the mayor, and I said, let's talk to him. Because if he says, hey, listen, the last thing I want in my city is a car dealership, we're moving on. Right? I'm not going to fight an uphill battle. So we got him. He was very open-minded, fantastic guy. And he said, listen, here's the deal. You can get this project done only in one way. I said, what's that? He said, you got to get the neighbors to buy into this project. He said, you get the neighbors to buy into this project and buy into the vision, and then I'll do my part, meaning him. He'll do his part with city council, with the city and the political process, and he'll guide us through with that one condition. He goes, if the neighbors are not going to buy into it, game over. I said, deal. So we had called a meeting. We invited all the residents who were in the proximity to not all the residents of Fort Mitchell, but the ones who were really affected. This street, next street over. We got them together at the Fort Mitchell Country Club, and we talked to them about the project, and we were very honest. We said, here's the concerns that we think you'll have, and they gave us those plus a few others, and here's how we're going to address them. And at the end of the day, it came down to trust. It came down to, are you really going to do the things that you say you're going to do, or are you just lying to get your project approved? And I said, you're going to have to go on faith. And I think that's what really touched me was the idea that Chris Weiss remember that, and when we had the flag raising ceremony the other day, he said this is a celebration of promises kept. And we've gotten back to every single one of those neighbors, and we said, did we keep our word? And the fact that we did really, I think, speaks volume to the kind of company we are, because this is a long-term situation. And I said from the very beginning, this is Mercedes-Benz of Fort Mitchell. So Fort Mitchell is critical to our success, and being a great neighbor and a great community partner is absolutely the most important thing we can do here.
What kind of things did you do to minimize the impact on the surrounding households?
Yeah, it was funny because some of the neighbors came in and said, okay, I have concerns. Lights. Right? Okay, I got it. I got concerns about lights, which is great because we had already kind of solved that problem ahead of time. We're the first car dealership in the world to partner with GE Lighting on their new LED technology. So he said, I joke with the GE guys, that's when I became a GE LED lighting salesperson. These lights are unbelievable. I mean, if you sit in the backyard of these neighbors that are 30 feet away from the building, it is pitch black. You step 1 foot under our property, and you got all the lighting in the world. And those lights each pole uses the equivalent of a 60-watt bulb that you'd have at home. So it's unbelievable. And so I had to get them to understand this vision of what it was. And it felt so good when we put the light poles up. I actually got a call from 2 or 3 of the neighbors saying, hey, your lights look great. So think about that. We went 12 months ago, lights. And then, wow, that was the deal. The second part was screening. And Nathan Smith was a rock star in terms of a great partner for us in our neighborhood, because he really was a huge advocate for the neighbors, which we loved, because he said, listen, screening. His issue is screening, landscaping. I don't want to look at some ugly car dealership. I don't want headlights and car alarms going off in my backyard. So, he's not shy. He's very vocal. and which is great because that got us really the issues that we needed to address. So we created this beautiful buffer of decorative fencing, solid privacy fencing, beautiful landscape. We hired Vioxx, which is a phenomenal landscape architect here in town, and which was a recommendation of Nathan Smith, by the way, and they did just an unbelievable job. We had this odd piece of property where you drive into a residential street and then come into the dealership. So let's create a grand entrance there, an entrance that looks like you're pulling into this mansion, this southern plantation, and not a car dealership. So we created that, and I think the neighbors really understood that. We created a 3D imagery of fly-through, and it's almost exactly what exists here today. So I think when the neighbors saw that, and demolition was another thing. Hey, you're going to take down this building, you're going to, everybody imagines this gigantic explosion, these buildings come down. So we had the demolition guy, the guy who was going to take this building down at that meeting, said, this is exactly how I do it. And we put seismographs in the neighbors' houses to make sure there wasn't any impact from that. And I think those are the little things that I think we listened, we reacted, and we did the things that we said we were going to do. Sounds kind of crazy because it's not that complicated, but that's what we did.
Bill Butler, Wayne Carlisle, Nathan Smith. I mean, you're just like a native Northern Kentuckian, aren't you?
Yeah, exactly. Well,
how'd you get so connected so quickly?
Well, I one word, bowling. My brother in a small world apartment, my middle brother, happens to be a business partner of Blevins and Carey's. And so they had a meeting up in Cleveland 6 months before any of this was even thought about. And he sat in my office in Cleveland, which is very much like this. They're sitting over there, I'm over here. And all of a sudden I hear Blevins talking about how he's got to get back because he's got to go do a deal to get a new Lexus. And that's when I stopped working and I started paying attention to the meeting. And I said, when are you getting a new Lexus? You're not getting a Lexus, you get a Mercedes. And he goes, no, I'm not a Mercedes guy, I'm a Lexus guy. And one thing led to another, he drove home in his Mercedes. So fast forward 6 months, when this project came to me through Mercedes, I said, geez, who do I know in Northern Kentucky? I said, I think that Blevins guy, he's from there. So I called him on the phone. I said, hey, Blevins, you live in Northern Kentucky? He goes, yeah. And I said, perfect. I said, do you know where Covington, Fort Mitchell, Fort Wright area is? He goes, I sure do. And I go, do you know anybody there? He goes, nope. I go, no, I know everybody there. And I said, perfect. So he introduced us to Bill. He introduced us to Wayne. And those guys have been, I tell you, that's the thing about this area that's blown me away, is the friendliness and the welcomingness of this, if that's a word, of this community is unbelievable. I mean, I thought Cleveland was nice. This was just beyond all expectations.